The ultimate heavyweight master-versus-apprentice showdown. For years, Larry Holmes was the ultimate sparring partner, absorbing the magic of Muhammad Ali. But what happens when the student steps out of the shadows to face his mentor, both men in their absolute untouchable prime? Will the Easton Assassin's devastating jab dismantle the legend, or will the greatest prove that magic cannot be replicated? Let the simulation begin. Origins: Larry Holmes. Long before he wore the heavyweight crown, Larry Holmes was a young man fighting for survival on the hard streets of Easton, Pennsylvania. Dropping out of school in the 7th grade to support his family, Holmes worked at a local car wash and a steel mill, using boxing as his only ticket out of poverty. He wasn't a heavily hyped Olympic gold medalist. He was a blue-collar grinder who learned the hardest lessons of the ring by serving as sparring partners for giants like Joe Frazier, Ernie Shavers, and most notably, Muhammad Ali. For 4 grueling years, Holmes absorbed the punishing reality of championship boxing in Ali's training camps. But Holmes was not just copying his mentor, he was developing his own lethal identity. He forged the single greatest weapon in heavyweight history, the Easton Assassin's left jab. It wasn't just a setup punch, it was a battering ram that fired with the speed of a middleweight and the devastating impact of a heavyweight right cross. Holmes built an ironclad legacy on resilience, fighting with a massive chip on his shoulder, desperate to step out from the massive shadow of the man who taught him the trade. Standing across the ring is the most recognizable human being to ever lace up a pair of gloves, Muhammad Ali. Born Cassius Clay in Louisville, Kentucky, his boxing journey began not out of a desire for glory, but out of pure anger after a thief stole his red Schwinn bicycle. That stolen bike ignited a fire that would consume the entire boxing world. Ali revolutionized the heavyweight division. Before him, big men were expected to be slow, lumbering punchers. Ali moved with the blinding, effortless grace of a welterweight. He dropped his hands, relied entirely on supernatural reflexes, and hit opponents with combinations so fast the human eye struggled to track them. But his physical gifts were only half the equation. Ali possessed an unbreakable psychological dominance. He broke opponents' minds before the opening bell even rang, using his razor-sharp intellect and relentless trash talk to make them fight angry and careless. Stripped of his prime years for his political and religious convictions, Ali returned slower but infinitely tougher, proving he could take the hardest punches in the world and still outsmart the most dangerous killers of his era. He was not just a boxer, he was a global phenomenon. What legends say. If the greatest minds in boxing history were to analyze this super prime fight, the predictions would be incredibly tense and deeply divided. George Foreman, who felt the full force of Ali's brilliance, would focus on the psychology. Larry Holmes has the greatest jab I have ever seen. It's like a piston, but you cannot measure the heart and the mind of Muhammad Ali. Ali knew Larry's insecurities. He helped raise him in this sport. Ali would be inside Larry's head, talking to him, making Larry second-guess his own jab. Mike Tyson, a devoted scholar of boxing history, would look at the sheer mechanics. People forget how incredibly fast Holmes was. Larry was mean, he was vicious, and he threw that jab like a heavyweight right hand. If Ali tries to lay on the ropes and play games with Larry, Holmes will punish his body and blind him with that left hand. Larry wouldn't fall for the tricks. Legendary trainer Angelo Dundee, who cornered both men, would find it almost impossible to call. It's a nightmare matchup.
Larry has the better fundamental jab, but Muhammad has the magic. When the lights are brightest, Muhammad finds a way to do the impossible. It comes down to who controls the center of the ring.
How did Larry Holmes prepare for a fight? To prepare for the most monumental fight of his life, Larry Holmes would retreat to his private training facility in Easton, isolating himself from the media circus. His training camp was a grueling blue-collar environment, completely stripped of luxury. Holmes trained with a massive chip on his shoulder, driven by a deep-seated feeling of being underappreciated by the boxing public. His physical conditioning was relentless, running steep hills in heavy boots at dawn to build the legendary endurance that allowed him to fight 15 hard rounds without fading. Inside the gym, his preparation revolved entirely around perfecting his masterpiece, the jab. He would spend hours on the heavy bag, snapping his left hand with terrifying velocity, ensuring it returned to his guard just as fast. Holmes engaged in brutal, full-contact sparring sessions, often taking on fresh fighters every few rounds to ensure he was constantly reacting to speed and pressure. He didn't train for flashy knockouts. He trained for surgical destruction, conditioning his body and mind to methodically break his opponent down round after agonizing round. How did Muhammad Ali prepare for a fight? Muhammad Ali's preparation was equal parts grueling physical labor and psychological warfare. Deep in the secluded woods of his legendary Deer Lake training camp in Pennsylvania, Ali built his body into a machine. He famously refused to use weights, believing they would slow down his supernatural hand speed. Instead, he relied on chopping massive logs with an axe to build his shoulder endurance and punching power. His road work was legendary, running miles every morning in heavy combat boots to forge legs that could dance for 45 solid minutes. But the physical training was only the foundation. Ali's true preparation happened in the mind and in front of the cameras. He would invite the press into his camp, turning his sparring sessions into a theatrical spectacle. He would predict the exact round he would knock his opponent out, deliberately placing impossible pressure on himself. This wasn't just arrogance, it was a calculated strategy to corner himself mentally, forcing his body to perform at superhuman levels. He trained to be lighter than air, faster than light, and completely untouchably confident. Analysis. Physically, this is a mirror match of heavyweights standing 6'3", armed with the longest, fastest reaches of their era. Larry Holmes possesses the superior, more fundamentally sound jab. It is a heavier, more punishing weapon than Ali's flicking, blinding left hand. Holmes is a master of distance, keeping opponents at the very end of his reach and following up with a devastating straight right. Ali, however, possesses a speed that defies the laws of physics for a man his size. In his absolute prime, Ali's footwork allows him to dictate exactly where the fight takes place. He hits from impossible angles and disappears before the counter arrives. Psychologically, the dynamic is fascinating. Holmes is the hungry, resentful student, desperate to prove he is better than the master. Ali is the arrogant, unshakable king. The defining factor of this fight will be the battle of the left hands. Can Larry Holmes establish his piston-like jab and pin Ali down, or will Ali's mesmerizing movement and lightning-fast combinations confuse the Easton Assassin and neutralize his greatest weapon? Arena and fighting rules. To host a fight of this unimaginable magnitude, the simulation takes us to the smoky, roaring, and humid atmosphere of Madison Square Garden in the mid-1970s. The arena is packed to the rafters, a sea of flashing camera bulbs illuminating the thick cigar smoke hanging over the ring.
The rules are the classic, unforgiving standards of the golden era of heavyweight boxing. It is a scheduled 15-round championship bout. Both fighters wear 8-ounce leather gloves. 3 knockdowns in a single round do not result in an automatic stoppage, and the fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round. Ali enters wearing his classic white trunks with black trim. Holmes stands opposite him in solid white trunks, heavily muscled and dead-eyed.
The opening bell rings, and the noise inside Madison Square Garden is deafening. Larry Holmes immediately claims the center of the ring, his guard high, stalking forward. He fires that legendary left jab. It snaps like a bullwhip, catching Ali slightly off balance. Holmes follows up with a heavy right cross, but Ali is already gone, leaning back with his hands down, making Holmes punch empty air by a fraction of an inch. For the first few rounds, the student makes the master work. Holmes' jab is relentless, swelling Ali's right eye and forcing the greatest to abandon his dancing and fight defensively. Ali retreats to the ropes, covering up, attempting to initiate his famous rope-a-dope strategy. But Holmes is too smart. He doesn't exhaust himself throwing wild hooks. He clinically picks Ali apart with vicious body shots and sharp uppercuts through the guard. By the 8th round, Holmes looks completely in control. He steps in to deliver a crushing right hand to put the legend away. But this is where the magic happens. Ali absorbs a glancing blow to the shoulder, bounces off the ropes, and suddenly, the prime floating Muhammad Ali emerges. He circles to his left, completely changing the rhythm of the fight. Holmes fires the jab, but Ali slips it flawlessly and counters with a blinding 4-punch combination that snaps Holmes' head back. The crowd erupts. Ali drops his hands entirely. He does the Ali shuffle, his feet a blur of white leather, mocking the Easton Assassin. Holmes, infuriated by the disrespect, lunges forward with a massive, sweeping right hook. Ali sees it in slow motion. He pivots perfectly on his lead foot, ducks under the sweeping hook, and unleashes the most devastating weapon in his arsenal, the anchor punch. A lightning-fast, perfectly timed right cross that lands flush on the point of the jaw of Larry Holmes. Holmes' knees buckle instantly. As he falls forward, Ali follows up with a blistering left hook that sends the Easton Assassin crashing heavily to the canvas. Holmes tries desperately to beat the count, his immense heart fighting his failing equilibrium, but he cannot find his legs. The referee waves it off. The winner. The arena explodes into absolute pandemonium as Muhammad Ali secures the knockout victory. Instantly dropping his arrogant persona, Ali walks across the ring to embrace his former sparring partner, showing deep respect for the immense war Larry Holmes just waged. While Holmes possessed arguably the greatest, most fundamentally perfect jab in the history of the sport and executed a brilliant strategy in the early rounds, he was ultimately fighting a ghost. Prime Muhammad Ali's supernatural reflexes, his ability to completely shift the rhythm of the fight, and his unteachable timing allowed him to find that singular, microscopic opening. Holmes proved he was a master of boxing mechanics, but Ali proved that the lightning-fast improvisational magic of the greatest simply cannot be replicated. It's your turn. What an absolutely legendary clash of heavyweight titans here on Quiet Power. Do you agree with this prime versus prime outcome, or do you think Larry Holmes could have outboxed the master over 15 rounds? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this simulation, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like to support the channel. Get ready, because our next video steps out of the ring and simulates the most secretive, controversial fight in martial arts history: Bruce Lee versus Wong Jack Man. Stay legendary.